Yeah, and hunterace is playing next.
He sure is.
He's taking on Casie in his next match, where Casie, like RDU was yesterday, was in the opportunity to win 2 straight and have playoff dreams be a possibility. It's not the case anymore, but he's still playing for placement and prizing overall here in Grandmasters. And Casie also is just one of the competitors who wants to win. And I think that, you know, calling back to the statement that Kalento made, where it's just, if you all in what you want to do is make money, you're not going to be a professional. And most of the players that I've seen in Grandmasters, their sole focus is winning games. They don't care about the prize. They don't care about anything else. They don't care what the record is. Winning the matches is the most important thing. And I think for Casie here, that's what it's about.
Yep, they want a worthy opponent to be put in front of them, someone to test them, and they want to beat that person. That's essentially what the spirit of competition comes down to, and I think most of these players just have that in spades.
I'm still looking forward to the day that Penniless Paladin is the one I end up playing against instead of the worthy opponent. Let's take a look at Casey's deck and see what he's brought to the table here. It's the good old Bomb Warrior. This is what gave him his start in Grandmasters, off to a fantastic start nonetheless. What better way to finish off the season?
Yeah, and this is honestly one of my strongest and earliest memories of the first few weeks, where I was stuck at home as an onlooker, like most of you guys watching right now, is just Casie curving out perfectly with Bomb Warrior and killing people on turn 7 or turn 8, giggling to himself as he was doing it. It will be one of my endearing memories from this tournament. So no surprise, he's gone back to the well with Bomb Warrior, just trying to round things out with kind of a feel-good deck for him and see if he can recapture some of that early glory.
Secondary deck to keep your eye on as well. The 2 big game hunters and 2 super colliders will be coming in against what hunterace has brought, because hunterace has brought Cyclone Mage and has an interesting take, I think, on what looks like to be targeted at the Warrior deck with the 2 Twilight Drakes and the Cairn as his secondary plan.
Yeah, and it's a strategy I don't mind. I think Twilight Drake is actually one of the better cards that you can bring in for anti-Warrior. I think bringing in more like late-game greedy stuff, like we saw like Power of Creation stuff early on being used in secondary decks against Warrior. I think just smooth curve, consistent pressure, more things in your deck that you can play on the turn that match their mana cost and just keep pressure up going against the opponent. Because if you give them 1 turn of breathing room, if you do nothing turn 6 and turn 7, and then you have Power of Creations for the rest of the game from turn 8 onwards, they can have used those 2 setup turns to put themselves in a position where they can still beat that. It's all about just constant hitting, doing something every turn, keeping that pressure up high.
One of the big things that stuck with me is he mentioned how awkward Twilight Drake interacts against Super Collider, where it becomes a tough turn for the Warrior player to have to figure out how much damage they can balance to clear off Twilight Drakes and the minions alongside it. And I love that plan. I think that's one of the best ways to take on problems that you expect to face, is find cards that just simply are strong against what your opponent's doing, not necessarily that counter it directly.
Just awaiting Casey's mulligan here. This is about the longest I've seen Casie take on any decision in his lifetime.
Well, I think this is interesting. I'm not gonna say it.
You wanted him to throw away Dr. Boom.
I'm just not sold on it. Like, I have an Augmented Elk and I have Coin. I want to kill them. I have 1 less card in my hand that kills my opponent.
Yep. That is one way of looking at it.
Because you know he's coining the Elk. I mean, let's not pretend that's not going to happen. This is week 1 Casie right here.
Yeah. For sure. He is Boulder Fist Ogre mode activate right now. 6-7, looking to change that record to a 50% win rate, which I think is something you can take home. You know, you can show to the parents. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, 50% against the best players in the world. Not bad.
Yeah.
No one wants to go home with a losing record.
Yeah.
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 What are you doing? What is wrong with you? Are you okay?
A lot of things.
Are you okay?
Do
you need help?
Always. That is kind of what we're each here for, is to help each other.
Oh, really? I never got that memo.
I would guess you technically need help in that instance as well. What's wrong with you?
I was hired with the explicit brief of undermining and belittling my co-caster at all times.
Yeah, the Raven days are done for now, all right?
Okay.
This is the year of the dragon we're in. Dragons breathe fire and they eat things. The excruciating pain that is a turn of Hearthstone in thinking for hunterace.
Yes. Just a brain like an unstable nuclear reactor on that man. It's just so much going through it causes him physical pain.
Are the headphones new? I don't remember the headphones.
For Casper?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I feel like they're not now that I'm thinking about it, and it's just blended in with that chair the whole time. Okay. Pretty straightforward turn on the Sandbinder, I think. You really want to fetch up any of the elemental minions. They're all pretty good. Casie, pretty easy. Snip, snap. Punch this thing, punch face. Continue this for the rest of the game.
A trade. A real-life Hearthstone trade from Casie playing Bomb Warrior. What do you know?
I want that Alec.
Yep, agreed.
This also sets up the Ziliax versus a Giant quite nicely. So for hunterace here, if Giant's coming down, that Ray of Frost is coming down.
Yes. If the Ray of Frost is coming down to lock out the Clockwork Goblin, it's not being used twice to kill an Alec.
So that means Sorcerer's Apprentice. Ray of Frost.
Yeah, hunterace just didn't really achieve a great deal this turn.
Well, you got a minion down your opponent you need to take care of. That's typically pretty easy for Warrior, but
yeah, especially when you have just seen them play Town Crier.
Yeah, it's not answered by Dynomatic is sort of my thinking. Because your opponent has to kill their own minion.
Sure.
And now you're really forcing them onto the play a rush thing.
Yeah, which, you know they can do. It's no great surprise.
That leads into the Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling on turn 6.
So now if you're Casie, it's Militia Commander versus Ziliax, and I like the Militia Commander for the reason that you hit upon previously, where the Ziliax can now come out to very, very cleanly answer a Giant if a Giant's coming down. Because if it is Mountain Giant Conjurer's Calling, there is no addition of Ray of Frost into that. I think it helps Casey's cause as well that the Militia Commander was the rush minion drawn from the Town Crier, so hunterace now has no further information on whether there is or is not a Ziliax in hand.
Super important. You know, as Casie has played this thus far, there's very little information about what any of these cards could be except the far left card, which was kept in hand. I still think that has potential to be like a Blastmaster.
I wonder.
Yep, something in the neighborhood of Dr. Boomad Genius. You know, perhaps Casie is considering keeping a Brawl or a second Augmented Alec or something.
It's certainly not a Wrench Caliber or other bomb card at this point.
No, Wrench Caliber certainly would have been used on the previous turn.
Smack that 3-2, get a bomb in the deck. Get 2 bombs in the deck while you're at it.
I wonder.
Double Ray of Frost turn again? Interesting. So I think this is hunterace recognizing the threat that minion poses with Ziliax. He's trying to get down a position where he can freeze and Conjurer's Calling.
Wow, that's a good turn. Casie having no armor, I think, is one of the big reasons that this is a very possible thing. There's no attacks cleanly on a Mountain Giant. Casey's very interested in killing the Sorcerer's Apprentice as well.
What now?
There's not a way to do that. And that means Mountain Giant gets to be in play going into your turn with Conjurer's Calling instead of the other way around.
Exactly. And that means Conjurer's Calling available, and he can then double up on the Conjurer's Calling if he wants, or he can Conjurer's Calling plus freeze, which then plays around the Ziliax possibilities coming down afterward.
Wow.
Casie, not much to do except just keep playing minions and pray at this point.
Shield block to fish for Brawl. At this point, he knows what's happening. I mean, this was such a strong start for Casie that hunterace has checked wonderfully. The game cheered for me.
And she just sets up lethal this turn, which is kind of gross.
Do you want to play that hard into it? Or, like, I feel like I'd rather play a Sea Giant almost. No, that's... Are you... What? He's just full committing here. There's 2 Brawls in Casey's deck. He just doesn't care? I guess you get to play the Sea Giant afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah, fair enough.
Time runs out on me.
Yeah, I like it, honestly. Make him have it. Four puts 22. Armor up takes him to 24. He's representing 27 on board currently. So he doesn't beat shield block this way, holding back the Sea Giant and the banana.
Beats Dr. Boom, though. Casie knows that. So he's got to find a different way. This looks to me like an attach Ziliax to my Clockwork Goblin turn.
Ugh.
How else do you live?
I'm upset.
I mean, you can Eternium over attack as well,
Yeah.
but that's going to get the shield pinged off and it's going to get run over.
It's kind of also quite upsetting.
I think it provides about the same amount of health.
Yeah.
Because you get to armor up next to the Ziliax, or you can play an Eternium over with it. Like just on the field.
Also, what was I talking about earlier? He does beat shield block armor up, right? It's just the same amount of armor as the Dr. Boom. Yeah, never mind. I missed one. Yeah, I think I like this more than the dump Ziliax on your Clockwork Goblin turn. I like that Stargazer Luna a lot more than either of them.
Oh, do ya?
Yeah.
The future is ours.
Casie, a bit of a smirk. Board's full though. Minions won't.
Behold the tools
That
of
could.
creation.
That should be lethal. Conjurer's calling the Eternium Rover.
Yes.
Oh, you know what would prevent that? If a Goldshire Footman went through it.
There are 5 taunt minions out of 55 possibilities at 1 mana.
That's not one of them.
Nope.
hunterace closes game 2 with an all-in fashion. Says, deal with this. And Casie couldn't.
Yeah, it was... He held 1 or 2 chips back. He had enough to play another blind afterwards. He had the Sea Giant in hand. That was about it. From that point on, nah.
They'll peel off the lowest chip, shove the rest of it, and hope the other person doesn't notice. If they're going to call, they snap call it instead.
Yeah.
And you're like, 1 chip left.
Yep.
In that case, it just worked out for him. And that's, you know, I think largely what the matchup is about and why I think that even though early on we had questions about just big game hunters and Super Collider, like, was this really enough? Yes, it is enough because the pressure that's coupled with it. If hunterace is under that kind of pressure and he runs into a Super Collider in that circumstance, he is not winning that game. And that's the reason those cards are there. Big game hunter is to make sure they can't pop the giant. Super Collider is there for when they take advantage of that and get the giant secured into play. And so that's why I like the secondary deck from Casie and why I've become such a fan of the Warrior side of this matchup. Not necessarily for game 1, although I do like it in game 1. I feel like it's game 2. It just, if you get a curve out in a Super Collider, it feels like you are invincible a lot of times.
My question is, when you have reckless bravado like we saw there from hunterace, where he just didn't care that there might be 2 brawls, he just kind of shoved in. If you have that same mentality against those big game hunters and Super Colliders, how often do you just get to blast through them anyway when they're not there?
it'd be X%, where X is the times that they're not there.
There it is.
Pretty easy equation on that one,
Yeah.
which is just why it's a matchup that we commonly see. It's pretty much boiled down to the situations. You know what you're in for, and you know what situations you're looking out for, and what changes that.
Yep.
And so that's the game we're going to be heading into. Hunterace does have some tricks still up his sleeve, though. We're going to talk about a secondary deck as well. So we got to go to a quick break, and when we come back, game number 2 of Hunterace versus Casie is getting underway.
Darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. But this league's gonna save the world.
Welcome back to the Tavern. It's Hearthstone European Grandmasters. We are amidst our 4th match of the day, 4th of 6, that is. And that's Admirable, and I'm joined by Sottle. And Hunterace is up a game here over Casie with some pretty impressive play. I was a little bit suspect of the use of Ray of Frosts, and then, as usual when I'm watching Hunterace, 2 turns later I go, that makes sense.
Yes. The one particular turn where he just threw out the mirror images. He had that one turn with Sorcerer's Apprentice, which was very much a setup turn. It didn't really achieve too much. But then the 2 back-to-back turns after that just put him in such a commanding position. In the case where Casie did not find a Brawl in the top half of his deck, and I think that's a read you can make on Casie as a player, that he's certainly not like a keep Brawl kind of gamer in that matchup. We've seen the way that he's played. He's just been looking for bomb cards and trying to beat people up. So I think there's a decent chance that because Hunterace went off so quickly, that the Brawl wasn't going to be in hand for Casie, and it paid off.
Yep, and my question mark's still on that Dr. Boom. It's hard not to keep it, but I don't know. I hate that card. What? So I can't really say anything about it. Let's take a look at their decks because both of them have some swap-ups that are taking place. With Casie, it is, as I mentioned as going to the break, it's the Super Colliders, it's the big game Hunters, and we're adding in an Acolyte of Pain to make sure that we can draw these tools if it comes necessary to do so. Coming out of the deck are 2 Eternium Rovers, an Omega Assembly, a copy of Snip Snap, and the Archivist Elysiana, which he included in the main, I'm guessing as an anticipation of Bomb Warrior showing up this week.
Yep, Elysiana, very poor card against Mage. The game is never going to get to that point, and you're never going to want to play an early Elysiana because how unlikely is it your Elysiana deck contains better answers to Mage?
Play 9 mana worth of nothing versus Mage. Yeah, right.
Than your standard deck. Thank you for that, Admiral. But yeah, outside of that, the one card that maybe, you know, might go missing. Actually, the Eternium Rovers and the Snip Snap can certainly cut off one game plan, which is just tempo, 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 beat them up. You know, play some early 1-drops, magnetize your Snip Snap, just push for tempo. That gets a little bit weaker when you substitute your deck in this way, but your ability to answer the board states that hunterace generated there more consistently go through the roof.
Yeah, which by proxy makes the 3-drops a lot better.
Yes.
So for hunterace, it is about making sure that you can be, you know, basically like one step slower than that. He's removing 2 copies of Frost Nova, a Sandbinder, and a Sea Giant, and in its place are coming a Snip Snap, 2 Twilight Drakes, and a Cairn Bloodhoof. And that's really, I think, the kind of philosophy where it's not necessarily a strong answer to what Warrior's going to be presenting against you, but it is just a strong idea, which is if your opponent's going to be relying on 3-cost minions, play a very efficient 4-cost minion to threaten that. If your opponent's going to use Super Colliders to make sure that your evenly sized minions are bumping into each other and dying, make sure that you have a minion that has way more health than it has attack. And both of those things present inconveniences to Casie in that regard. You know, I look at the matchup from America's just the other day with Firebat and him playing super aggressively against Amnesiac, as we apologize for the spectator issue here. We'll get this handled as quickly as we can. He played Twilight Drake, and Amnesiac was forced to use health total to clear off Twilight Drakes, just hitting him turn after turn, and it racked up so much damage. And it put Firebat in a spot to where a draw of Archmage Antonidas could win him the game in a spot where I think he just otherwise would have been losing the game outright. He's playing Mountain Giants and just forcing Amnesiac to use life total to hit him. And ultimately, you know, he didn't quite get there, but he gave himself the opportunity to. And I think that's one of the most important marks there is when you're going to lose the game otherwise, do everything you can to try and get lucky and win.
Yeah, I think it's scary in the matchup because generically, Warrior is the class that has the health total to spare in the matchup. They're the ones that can afford to be just smashing an 8-8 with their face with a Super Collider and still be able to keep going because they tend to grab early tempo. In that matchup that we saw there, in terms of the mulligans, it looked like Hunterace was sat on double Sorcerer's Apprentice going first, which actually dramatically increases his ability to just curve out and be aggressive. And if you can get in that spot where you get ahead of Bomb Warrior, where they don't hit their quite inconsistent curve, and you get your equally inconsistent curve, but if you do get it, you can start pushing damage, you can start forcing the issue. Then cards like Super Collider do start to get a lot more intimidating.
And you can see where that's shaped up. Sorcerer's Apprentice certainly came down, and a Wrench Caliber with Coin has answered that straight away. And that's probably one of the scariest things that hunterace is going to see, because largely the weapon destruction from Mage, I think, has been rotating out of the deck. As you realize, it's just slow. It takes a lot of time, and there's not really much you could do about it.
It looks to me, just based on the numbers on the screen, that an Apprentice was thrown away, and that Wrench Caliber has hit Hunterace in the face.
Oh. You're right. That absolutely is more correct.
Yeah.
That's almost worse.
Wait, for who?
For Hunterace.
Okay.
Yeah, my head just glanced at the 27, and I saw Sorcerer's Apprentice missing, and I was like, ah!
Clean answer to the Twilight Drake. The cleanest 4-7 comes down. It's where hand size manipulation can be very important. Can't really comment on any details because of the missed early turns. But that coming down as a 4-7 against a Wrench Caliber is definitely not the ideal situation for Casie to have been in.
Indeed.
Oh, sorry, for Hunterace to have been in. It was completely ideal for Casie.
Casie here, second Wrench Caliber. You see where this curve's going. You've added in 6 additional weapon charges to the deck with Super Colliders. It is vital that you get not only Wrench Caliber early in pretty much every game, it's just one of the best cards in the deck. He's going into turn 6 with Elec Clockwork Goblin to follow up on that second swing, and there's no giant opportunity here for Hunterace unless he freshly drew it right here.
Right.
And if that happens, guess what?
What to do? what to do.
What's that, Admirable?
Big game hunter. I thought you were just going to take it from there and go.
Okay, just reconciling what happened in the first few turns that we did miss. I believe the first Sorcerer's Apprentice was played, but it was killed with a Town Crier that was in play plus a Warpath, which then led to that first. There we go.
Runs out on me.
First Wrench Caliber going face.
I was wondering where those extra cards. I was like, I feel like they're each down a card.
Took me a while to work that one out based on what information I have available, but I think it's... We've now seen 4 charges of Wrench Caliber plus a Clockwork Gnome for 5 plus 2 additional Elic shuffles for 7 bombs in hunterace's deck.
He could just die.
He is effectively dead. He has effectively negative health right now.
Every turn he could just die.
Yeah.
That tells me Luna might be
Yeah.
be a little off.
It's a little bit intimidating when you have 7 bombs in your deck. Above 25% of your deck currently explodes in your face.
Now that being said, he does have a 0-cost giant and 2 conjurers calling. And you want these to be flanked by smaller minions to reduce super collider percentages. Gets 2 taunts. So now the question, I think, is Sorcerer's Apprentice between them.
Runs out on me.
Conjurer's calling again and figure that out. Oh, you could kind of like, you could just like put the Luna between them.
What to do?
Yeah. I wouldn't hate that, honestly.
Yep, and you have to counterattack. When pressured, pressure back. And so that 7-8 next to a 7-8 next to an 8-8 is not a prime super collider target.
Nuh-uh. And when there's 3 minions in play with
What now?
big game hunterable attack, none of them are a particularly good big game hunter target because it just costs too much mana.
Yeah, I think you have to be more interested in the outcome of hit the 3-3 or hit the... Hunterace is confused by this, but
Hunterace is really
that is
confused.
absolutely the right call. Like, the last thing you want, I think, is one of these just smashing the giant and then you have nothing to do afterwards.
Wait, so the 7-8 hits the 8-8, the 7-8 dies, and then, yeah, you have nothing to do afterwards.
Yeah, you just
Right.
hit it, you hit a 0-2.
Right. So the way he takes it, he sometimes hits a 3-3, but then also surely the worst out, like hitting the 3-3 is worse than hitting the 8-8.
Yeah, just trade both minions into this, the rest of the thing then. How's that any different than when you hit the mountain giant and then you still can't kill anything else?
Because the mountain giant has already killed one entire 7-8.
Right, but then there's still a 7-8 and an 8-1 and a 3-3. Every situation ends up with Hunterace having less stats on board in the situation Casie played it. He gets to kill 2 things instead of 1 thing. Every time.
Okay, I've lost track. I'll take your word for it. You seem very convinced.
Time runs out on me.
Snip snaps are pretty good. That is major trouble for Casie.
Well played.
Yeah, it's about that time. Casie just gonna hand it over.
I don't blame him.
Chooses death and goes over to a 2-0 victory for hunterace, who matches Psycho's performance earlier on and now sends us back deep into tiebreaker territory. He picks up +6 straight off the bat in terms of his tiebreaker 2, which can come into play just from that win versus Casie. Psycho actually made more of an improvement by beating a higher quality player further up. 8 points picked up to his tiebreaker 2 from his win against Orange earlier.
So that brings them both at a 10-4 score.
Yep.
And tiebreaker math, pending arrival.
Yep, and still 2 more games to play that can factor into that as well.
Indeed. So Boston versus Silvername coming after that with Yarla versus RDU. In the meantime, we're going to be talking to hunterace here very shortly, who is now ready for us. hunterace, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys.
Congratulations on your win here. You cap off the season with a pretty fantastic finish here. Talk to me about Grandmasters overall and what you're looking forward to in playoffs.
Grandmaster was kind of a roller coaster for me. It started out pretty bad, and I had a pretty bad score in the beginning. Now in the second part of the round robin, I actually went 7-0, so I beat everyone in the second part. So I'm very happy about that and being able to recover. So yeah, and going into the playoffs now, I mean, it's really just all about getting the spot for the World Championship, and that's what I'm aiming for.
Nice. So just talking about the matchup that you played, obviously Casie didn't find a brawl in either of the matchups, but you kind of played very aggressively to take advantage of the situation where there was no brawl.
Yeah, like game 1, he had a very aggressive start, and I didn't have my Sorcerer Apprentice or anything to contest with him. It was just a bit too strong, so I kind of had to take a risk. And at one point there, he kind of overcommitted into the board, even though he was kind of weak to me going Conjur's Calling Frost Nova, or Conjur's Calling in general. It seemed that he would like the setup of brawl, so I kind of had a read on him at one point there that I didn't have a brawl also, so I could have extra commit a bit. But it was a bit weird. I almost messed that up in the end there. I was so confused about the situation, and I was trying to figure out everything and what was my ultimate play. So I kind of just realized 40 seconds into the turn I can just Conjur's Calling the one drop.
Speaking of confusion, you looked like you were a little confused over where Casie chose to send his Super Collider attack. Is that something that Admirable and I were debating over as well?
Yeah, I assume it was just a bad position, so you had to go for the flip. I mean, that's what I assume, because you can obviously just miss the 50-50 there and he loses, but if he was in such a bad position that he had to take the 50-50, because sometimes winning that 50-50 is better than. But I don't know, it doesn't really make sense, right? Because you can just take the 50-50 on the other one.
See, that's
right?
what I thought.
No.
That's what I thought, but Admirable disagrees with me.
All right.
And he's writing notes right now trying to work this out.
This is super easy.
He's cheating. He's currently cheating.
Well, I already had this drawn out. I just wanted to make sure I double check it.
Okay.
Order of board, 3-3, left to right, 3-3, 7-8, 7-8, 8-8. Casey's board, left to right, 3-4, 3-3. If you attack 7-8 next to Mountain Giant and you hit the Mountain Giant, that's your turn. You end up with more stats in play. If you attack 7-8 on the left...
I don't. The 7-8 just dies. If he attacks the other 7-8,
and then you have 8-1, 7-8, 3-3. So he takes 18 damage. If he attacks 7-8 on left, it can kill 3-3, and then he can kill that, leaving you with 15 attack in play. Or it can attack 7-8, and he can clear that, leaving you with 11 attack in play. Both of his iterations on the other side are better.
I mean, he didn't have anything besides it, so he just had to play for the good scenario anyways. I probably just missed in both the bad scenarios.
I agree with you, which is why you definitely do it the other way.
Yeah, you're right. If he doesn't have anything additional, it will end up with less. I will end up with less power that way in the worst case scenario. So I mean, it makes some sense, yeah.
Well, I'm convinced.
I wasn't confused. I thought it was good.
Also, I've been hearing some people say that Psycho can catch me on tiebreakers, but when I did the math, it wasn't possible. So, do you guys know?
I believe, and I've just had it confirmed to me by a producer, that you were guaranteed if you won. That is my understanding.
Yeah,
that's what I've just received through headset.
Also,
it's the only thing that's made us doubt that so far is that Pavel mentioned that Psycho said something to him. That's the only information we have to the contrary. So as far as I'm concerned, I'll put my neck on the line. You're number one.
Sounds good. So I mean, just have to prepare for playoffs now and try to win 2 games there. We're back in Worlds.
Well, you're going to have to sleep and eat and, do all those other things as well. But as far as Hearthstone, yeah, you just got to prepare for playoffs at that point.
Yeah.
Well, all right. I'll let you go celebrate and take care of things and have a great day. We'll see you next week in playoffs.
Next week.
Number one last year, number one right now.
Oh, I hope that's right.
No, it's right. You've like quadruple checked your math. You're like that person who like sets their alarm on their phone and then picks it up and looks again, and then 5 minutes later you're like, did I set my alarm? And then you keep checking to see if you set your alarm, and before you know it, your alarm's going off.
Well, let's take a look at what we do know, and that is, right now, that is the representation that we have. The one game left that still has any impact, although we believe it to be not enough impact, is RDU versus Yala. If Yala were to win that one, both players pick up +2. If RDU were to win, hunterace would pick up +2, and Psycho would pick up +1, which is why I believe it to be impossible. Psycho, to my mind, cannot improve from this position.
Also, hunterace had swept Yarla and RDU.
Yeah.
So he gets the maximum percentage
Either way.
From that outcome. He cannot be caught at this point. hunterace, the number one in Division B. And that's your top 3 now for Division B. That is set in stone.